Today, I'm exposing my greatest weakness. It's not sunlight, it's not holy water, it's bread. I have an autoimmune disease called celiac disease, and a single crumb of gluten can make me sick. And no, I'm not exaggerating. I literally have to treat bread like it's my mortal enemy. So today, I want to tell you about what it's like living with celiac disease, because trust me, it's a lot weirder than people think. Let's go back to tiny Serafina, 5 years old and just starting kindergarten. I wasn't like most kids my age. I was incredibly quiet and had almost no energy, and my stomach hurt all the time. I cried every day going to school because I just felt so awful. The biggest red flag, though, was my weight. I was already severely underweight, and eventually, I even started losing weight instead of gaining it. So my parents took me to the doctor, where I had some blood work done. I'm very fortunate that my doctor decided to test me for celiac disease, because a lot of people go years without being tested. Especially back then, when people knew even less about celiac. My results would later come back positive, but to officially confirm the diagnosis, I had to see a gastroenterologist, basically a stomach doctor, and undergo an endoscopy. An endoscopy is where doctors use a tiny camera on the end of a flexible tube to look inside your digestive system. They also take a small sample from your small intestine to check for damage in the villi, the tiny finger-like structures that absorb nutrients. Damaged villi are one of the biggest signs of celiac disease. I was lucky enough to have an amazing gastroenterologist, and I still remember how kind he was. One thing that's always stuck with me is that he had a little keychain hanging from a stethoscope that opened up to a tiny little farm. 5-year-old me thought it was the coolest thing ever. After confirming my diagnosis, he explained celiac disease in a way I could actually understand. My parents also got me a picture book called Eating Gluten-Free with Emily about another little girl living with celiac disease. As a kid, it was comforting to know I wasn't the only one going through it. So, what exactly is celiac disease? Celiac disease is an autoimmune disorder. When someone with celiac eats gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye, their immune system mistakenly attacks their own small intestine. Over time, this damages the villi. That's why untreated celiac can lead to all kinds of problems, from stomach pain and fatigue to vitamin deficiencies and poor growth in children, in my case. There's no cure for celiac disease, and the only treatment is a very strict gluten-free diet. And when I say strict, I mean strict. Even tiny amounts of gluten from cross-contamination can make me sick. Overnight, my entire way of eating had to change. The first big adjustment was learning how to read ingredient labels. Because it turns out, gluten isn't just in bread, it's in anything made with wheat, barley, or rye, which means the obvious stuff like bread, cakes, cookies, and pasta, but it doesn't stop there. I slowly learned that it can also hide in things that you wouldn't expect, like soy sauce, soups, salad dressings, deli meats, and even some flavored drinks. And there are also sneaky ingredient names that you have to look out for, like malt, modified food starch, hydrolyzed wheat protein, and spelt. It shows up in even more unexpected places, like shampoos, soaps, and makeup. So basically, I had to start reading everything. But over time, you start to find your rhythm. You figure out what foods are safe, what brands you trust, and what your new normal looks like. And honestly, gluten-free food has gotten a lot better since when I was little, which makes a huge difference. Some of my go-to favorites are things like Promise gluten-free bread, Feel Good Foods frozen snacks, Udi's gluten-free pizza, Goody Girl cookies, and even gluten-free versions of classics like Oreos and Chips Ahoy. And the funny thing is, a lot of food is naturally gluten-free anyway, like meats, fish, fruit, and vegetables, so I definitely don't go hungry. It just became a new way of eating, not necessarily a bad one, just different. But even once you find your routine, it's not always easy. There's definitely an anxiety that comes with celiac disease that's hard to explain unless you live it. You're constantly thinking about what's safe or what might be contaminated, and socially, it can be really isolating. There are a lot of moments where you just feel left out, like parties, events, or even just grabbing food with friends. Everyone else gets to eat without thinking, while you have to plan ahead, or sometimes I would even say no just to avoid the stress. Even when people are kind about it, there's still that feeling of being different in situations that are supposed to be easy and fun. I remember one moment after a softball game in middle school. My team decided to go out for pizza together. Everyone was excited, laughing, and grabbing slices right away. And I just sat there. There wasn't anything I could eat, so I didn't order anything. I just watched everyone else eating and having fun while I tried to act normal about it. But honestly, I remember feeling really left out. Not because anyone was mean, but because I physically couldn't join in on something that was supposed to be simple and fun. And even now, restaurants are still one of the most stressful parts. The risk of cross-contamination is always there, and it can happen in ways people don't even think about. Shared fryers, cutting boards, utensils, or even someone not realizing what gluten actually even is. That's actually a major part of the challenge. A lot of people still don't fully understand what gluten is, or how careful you have to be about it. I remember once joining a celiac disease support group, and I was the youngest person there by a lot. Most of the other people were in their 50s or 60s, and many of them had just been recently diagnosed. So instead of being the one learning everything, I ended up being the one explaining things and helping them figure out what to do. Living with celiac disease has definitely had its hard moments, but over time, it's just become another part of my life. Not something I think about every second of every day, but something that's always kind of there in the background. And some days, it's there more than others. And if you're dealing with it too, or something similar, you're definitely not alone. So yeah, that's my experience with celiac disease. I'm hoping that later on in some of my live streams, I can do a charity event to raise money for the Celiac Disease Foundation. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new. This is a little bit of different content for me, talking about my real life and being a bit more vulnerable. But I hope that I can connect with others who are in a similar situation. So if you have celiac like me, or if you like VTubers or video games or Vocaloid, then maybe stick around and check out my channel. I stream on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd love if you come check it out, or even join our Discord community. So long, my shadow sprites, till we meet again.